Hey, it's time for another That VidBlaster guy. I'm Tom Sinclair. Coming up today, we're going to talk about how to take cell phone calls or how to take any kind of phone call on the show through your cell phone. We were going to talk about version 3.20, but we found a bug in it, so it's not usable. So we might have to wait until next week on that one. And then we've got a lot of other good stuff. So hang around, and we'll be right back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you on board in a new year. It's 2014. Holy cow. I remember when I was a kid figuring out, you know what? When it's year 2000, I'm going to be 50 something. Wow, that'll be old. Well, now it's 14 years later than that. Oh my goodness, how time flies. That VidBlaster Guy is a show dedicated to talking about VidBlaster, my favorite software program for video streaming, recording, live video production. It's really, that's what it excels at. And full disclosure, I'm a VidBlaster reseller, so I hope when you buy VidBlaster, you'll buy it from me. Go to my website, thatvidblasterguy.com. and you'll see a store there where you can buy it, or if you want to upgrade, you can upgrade it there. Today we're going to talk about a whole smorgasbord of things about VidBlaster. One of the things coming up sometime this month in January is going to be a new show we're going to spin off from this that will be not specific to VidBlaster, but we'll be talking about streaming and recording and video and audio and capture cards and all that other stuff that sort of surrounds the streaming and video recording, but is not specific to VidBlaster. We found that we were spending a lot of time on this show talking about things that really weren't VidBlaster specific, and we want to spend our time talking about VidBlaster here. So we'll stay up to date, or stay with us, and we'll let you know when that show's on the air. We'll probably, like we did with this show, we'll probably do some alpha shows, some not ready for primetime shows, and then we'll do some beta shows, and then we'll kick off the regular season and try to give you some good stuff. One of the things that we've got going in the VidBlaster world coming up for 2014 is VidBlaster 101. If you're new to VidBlaster, you'll want to pay attention to this because we're putting together a series of videos that'll essentially be 15-minute video tutorials on VidBlaster. Everything there is to know, starting with the basics and moving to the more complicated. It'll be available by subscription, or if you purchase a copy or an upgrade your VidBlaster during 2014, you'll get a free subscription to it. So stay tuned for more details on that. That's going to be a lot of fun, a good project to work for. We were going to talk about the new beta version 3.20 today, because there's a real breakthrough on that. I think the ability to input, not just input, but receive on the IP decoder, the ability to take in multiple audio channels into VidBlaster as opposed to just bringing in that one channel. So we were going to demo that today, but 3.20 has a bug in it, not in the IP decoder, but in the player. Somehow a bug just slipped in that causes a glitch in the video and the audio when you play it in the player. Of course, the player is a big part of the show. We play videos frequently, and we can't have something like that doesn't work. So we're going to have to skip the version 3.20 overview and point forward to next week. Well, whenever version 3.21 gets released, and that fixes that bug, we'll go back and review the new multiple audio input. That's really cool, and it really started with a young man down in the Tampa, Florida, USA area, who is doing a reality TV show and had a series of 20 or so IP cams and was taking the video feeds into VidBlaster and also wanted to be able to take the audio feeds in and have it follow the video. And so Mike Versteeg, the developer of VidBlaster, was working on that and has come up with a great solution for it. And so we hope to be able to review that next week. We'll just see as soon as we can. We'll let you know. Talking about the general live video production, one thing that you want to put in your toolbox, that's, again, it's not VidBlaster specific, but you want to put in your toolbox is something called Streaming Media Magazine. And you can go to streamingmedia.com and sign up for it. It's free, and it has great articles on encoders and CDNs. It talks about what's going on with Netflix and ESPN, and talks about Ustream. Livestream talks about has a yearly awards where they award the best live video production software and the best encoder and the best encoding hardware and the best encoding software and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're limitless categories. But it's a great insight into the industry. What do they call themselves? The business and technology of online video. And the January-February edition is out. Has the headline article is called "A Time for a Tune-Up." That is how to optimize your H.264 encoding. Well, it's intended for folks that have video that they are going to make available on demand that needs to be encoded for that purpose and then uploaded to a CDN where it can be viewed by the end user. But a lot of the information about encoding for VOD also applies to encoding for live streaming. So you can adapt that right over. And there's a great article by Jan Ozer, who is sort of I think he's sort of the guru, definitely with Streaming Media Magazine. I think he's got 3 or 4 articles in this edition. And so it's definitely worth the read. And Jan has got some good webinars that are available too that talk about how to get your encoding software dialed in just right. And yeah, I think if you Google, or better yet, go to YouTube and do a YouTube search on Jan Ozer. And let's get the spelling of his name for you. And that's O-Z-E-R, Jan Ozer. Okay. So that's a good resource, Streaming Media Magazine. I get it. I look forward to receiving it. And in fact, they send a source book out once a year too, that basically is a list of all the companies that provide hardware or software or accessories or peripherals for the online video industry. So it's definitely something you want on your bookshelf. I certainly have it on mine. Let's see, where are we going? Because all of our thunder for today's show got stolen by the bug in 3.20 that I just became aware of this morning. I suspect it was probably out there before, and I wasn't aware of it. One of the things that we're going to see coming down the pike, excuse me, coming down the pike this year that may get to the point where it kind of affects folks like you and me that are doing streaming of small events, shows, perhaps our churches or sporting events, is a new encoding protocol, H.265. And now we've talked about H.264. It's been available in Flash Media Live Encoder. It's available in Wirecast as an encoder, and is a very efficient encoder. It takes a little bit extra CPU to do that, but if you're bandwidth challenged, if you want to use as little bandwidth as possible and have the best possible video resolution, then H.264 is what you've been using. Well, H.265 is also called HEVC for high efficiency video codec, and that will begin to filter down. I think the Wirecast 5 is using a version of that, and there are some other higher end encoding softwares that are using that. And I think we're going to see that trickle down. We're not going to see it come into Flash Media Live Encoder because Adobe has stopped supporting that. They haven't done an upgrade to that since version 3.2, which was several years ago. So we're going to have to look elsewhere to find this codec. It remains to be seen where things like FFmpeg, which is a open source multi-codec encoder, FFmpeg may have something like that available. FFmpeg is a command line encoder, which Flash Media Live Encoder can also be a command line encoder, but FFmpeg, and it has some GUIs, some graphic user interfaces that have been created for it that make it a little easier to use, but there may be some promise there. Encoding is a big part of the streaming, the live streaming process, because you've got video like I've got here, you've got audio like I've got here, and I'm going to put it all together and I'm going to send it to you. But to send it to you, I've got to first encode it here. Then I'm going to send it to my CDN, and they are going to make it available to you, and or they are going to re-encode it and then make it available to you. Now, today's broadcast is actually being encoded two different ways here in my studio, and being sent to Dacast, D-A-C-A-S-T, Dacast.com. That's my CDN. I think I pay them about $25 a month for 100 gigabytes or something like that, more than I can possibly use. And most of what I do is streaming live with Dacast. The show will be recorded and then uploaded later to YouTube for video on demand. YouTube doesn't charge anything, has a great audience. I get a lot of drive-by viewers from YouTube. I encourage you to think about that if you're doing any kind of show, is make it available on YouTube as well. The Dacast is going to take both my streams. The main stream here is 864 by 480 at 30 frames a second. And then I'm sending another stream. Let's see if I can find out what the specs of that one are. Yeah, let's just see for a second if we can find out for that. I'm looking here. I'm actually using Wirecast 4 to stream this. And let's see, we are broadcasting a second stream using H.264 at 320 by 180, 30 frames a second with a 350K bit rate. And that is intended for folks that want to watch us on an iPad or an iPhone. I know we have friends that watch us in other countries that get up early in the morning and watch us on their way to work and use it on their phone or their iPad. And so it's a lower resolution feed so that it doesn't eat up all their data plan. And it still gives them pretty good quality audio, which, of course, as you know, is probably the most important thing because you can't communicate without the audio. So encoding is going to be advanced. It already is more advanced than what we're using right now, but that advancement is going to trickle down to folks like you and me that can take advantage of it and can make our streams look better or use less bandwidth or both. The limiting factor is probably going to be more CPU related than anything else, although some of these encoders are making use of the GPU in your PC to do some of the processing, so that kind of offloads onto the CPU. So we'll keep an eye on that and probably report that back more in our other show. Oh, I know. I've had a lot of folks who have written in or have called and have wanted to upgrade from version 2 VidBlaster to version 3. And a lot of those folks have taken that same opportunity to upgrade their edition from the Pro Edition to the Studio Edition so that they can have more modules. But the big benefit, I think, is the ability to have access to macros and the API. The macros basically allow you to execute API functions by the push of a keystroke I've got my little keyboard set up right now. We're F3, and I'm sorry I don't have extra cameras set up in my studio today. I'm kind of reworking the studio, so I've just got the one main cam. But by pressing F3 on my keyboard, or excuse me, I guess it's what is it? Is it F4, F5? Not sure. Hold on a second. I think I think I made the feed go away in Wirecast by pressing a button that Wirecast thought meant go to black. So let's try again here. Pressing F3. There we go. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. F3 just makes that go away. F2 makes it come back. I've told it to do that. It's not anything fancy, but you can string up a whole bunch of commands together and tell VidBlaster to do a whole bunch of things just by pressing one button. And for those of you that are doing kind of the one-man, one PC gig, you will find something like that really, really helpful. And so if you haven't tried it, and if you, let's see, how would you do this? You'd have to have a PC that doesn't have a licensed edition of VidBlaster on it and download one of the latest betas there, not 3.20, 3.19 would probably be the best one. And that'll download as the Studio Edition. It'll say Trial Edition, but it's equivalent to the Studio Edition, so you can play with the macro function and see if it's something that's useful to you. And if you're not sure and you want to chat about it, shoot me an email or call me, and I'd be happy to discuss it with you. It's really pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And for folks that do the same thing, you know, kind of every week, every show, to have macros set up where all they have to do is punch the buttons and they don't have to necessarily be aware of much more than that. It can be a real lifesaver. Coming up here towards the second part of the show, we're going to do a live call-in. And to do that, we've set up an input that takes my standard cell phone. I'll unplug it and show it to you right here. My Samsung Galaxy 3, so I'm not even up to date with the latest greatest, and plugs into it a plug that looks like, well, let me go ahead and plug it up here, but the plug, and I've got a spare, the plug looks like something that might have come with your video camera. It's got RCA jacks on one side and a 3.5 millimeter, also referred to as a 1/8 inch jack on the other side. You can get them off of eBay for about $1.50, and you can plug your cell phone into this end and your mixer into this end and take calls live on the air through your cell phone. Now, if you don't want your cell phone number out there for the whole world to see, you can get a Google Voice number, which is what I have, and that will be a special number that I can assign to the same physical phone without having to worry about people having my regular cell number. And then if I get calls on that number or when I'm not expecting them, I just let them roll to voicemail. So we've got that set up, and I'll post the phone number in the chat, so that way folks that are live can do it, and those of you that are watching on YouTube, you'll know that folks are seeing the number to call in the chat. Now the way these connect to your mixer, and again, I wish I had a camera set up for it. I wasn't really prepared to do this part today, but let's go plow right through it. The video connector, the yellow one, is the one that plugs into the input on your mixer. So this carries the audio from the cell phone to the mixer. So this is the caller's audio right here. And then your audio back to the caller would go over either or, actually not either or both of these. It could go over both of them if you wanted to send back stereo, which you probably really don't care to. But to use mono, you would use the red one. And that would be attached to an output on your mixer. In my case, I'm attaching it to an aux send so that I can do a mix minus with my caller, and that way they don't hear their own voice coming back to them. I'm eliminating their voice, but I'm sending them the rest of the mix. So they get the mix that includes my voice and any videos that I have, that kind of thing, minus their own voice. And so if you're not real sure about that, just Google mix minus or go to YouTube and type in mix minus for the search, and you'll see lots of great videos about how to set up mix minus and how to explain it better than I've explained it for you. But basically, it's to keep your caller from getting that return audio. And if they're doing something on the other end, they would want to have a mix minus as well, so that you're not getting double audio. So we'll take some calls on that here in a little bit. But it's really cool, and hat tip to Joe DeMax from the United Kingdom for tipping me off on how to do this and how inexpensive it was. We were talking a little bit in pre-show about the sound quality of something that's coming in over a cell phone, and yes, it sounds like a phone call. It sounds like a phone call, but I think that gives a little bit of authenticity to it. Is it the highest tech that it can be? Oh goodness, getting a lot of messages here. Should have turned that sucker down. Is it the highest tech? I mean, yes, you can take phone calls with Skype, and the audio is going to be crystal clear. But think about it. If you take a phone call with a phone and it sounds like a phone, and people know that they're calling in and they can just call in, it really sounds authentic. And now, when I listen to a lot of talk radio, especially during the football season. I listen to the American football season. I listen to a lot of sports shows. And when people called in, it was evident that they were calling in. There was a phone call that they had made. It wasn't that crystal clear sound as if they were coming in by Skype. And so it really did carry forth the whole feel of a call-in show. And so if you've got a call-in show and you want your callers to sound like they're calling in, use the $1.50 trick. If you've got a call-in show and you want your callers to sound like they're in the studio with you, then get a separate Skype number, and folks can call in using their Skype, and they can go from their Skype to your Skype, and they'll sound absolutely crystal clear. It's really great. And if you've got a guest on, and you're just doing audio for the guest, that's definitely how you want to bring the guest in, is by Skype, so that audio is as clear as it can be. And of course, if you're doing video, you're going to take them in as Skype as well for that. So we'll get that posted here in just a second. Just going to check the chat room here and make sure I haven't missed anything. And somebody is posting a URL to a diagram of how to connect the little cell phone device we talked about. And looks like a bunch of folks in chat have signed up for Streaming Media Magazine. Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, let's check the notes here and see. Oh yeah, I've got a note here in my show notes there. I wanted to talk a little bit about looking ahead. If you haven't seen the last show from last year, the one that was a week before Christmas, it was sort of a review of 2013 and kind of what we would like under the Christmas tree, the VidBlaster Christmas tree for 2014. Looking ahead to 2014, I'm really excited about VidBlaster and what's going to happen in the way, because I'm getting lots of inquiries from folks, certainly all over the United States, even all over the world, about ways that they want to use VidBlaster that I had never even thought of. And it is really exciting, and it really goes to the way VidBlaster was designed. It's a building block program. It's Legos. It's an erector set. It's Duplo blocks. And you can build them to make anything you want, just about. And folks are out there using the trial edition to test and to tweak and to see, is this going to work for me? And if you're watching this, if it's the first time you've seen this show, go ahead and download the trial edition and play with it. You can get it on the VidBlaster forum. That's forum.vidblaster.com. Scroll down to the bottom. There's a downloads section there. And you can if you're living dangerously, you can download the latest beta Don't download today's latest beta, 3.20, because it's got a bug in it, but download the last one, 3.19, that I'm using for this show. Or you can go back and download the latest official release version if you'd like to, and those will be identified in the download sections as well. And you can play with it. You can stream video with it. You could stream a whole show. We could stream this whole show with the trial version, trial edition if we wanted to. There'd be a logo in the top left corner, I think, and then another one here in the bottom, top right corner and bottom left corner. But other than that, it would be fully functional audio. It wouldn't have anything coming across the screen. It doesn't have any audio of its own that interrupts your broadcast. So you can test it and see, is this going to do what I want it to do? If you've got a setup and you're using different software, you're using one of the other video production softwares and you want to try VidBlaster, you can do that. You can run it through your same capture card, same audio, and be a lot of fun. And if you need some help, shoot me an email. Oops, Tom@thatvidblasterguy.com. Yep, there's the advertisement for that. So let's see. Let me post in the chat room the phone number and see if we can get anybody that would like to call and chat with us about whatever. So let's see if we can get the phone set up here. Okay, that's all good. And then we're going to put this number in here. And we can see if anybody wants to call. Now again, this is going to be using an app that is installed on my phone called Google Voice that I think requires a separate registration as well and allows me to choose a local phone number as the phone number for my Google Voice account. And then, wow, that didn't take time.
From unknown caller. To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Let's see. Hello and welcome to the show.
Well, Tom, I'm happy to be on your show again.
Is this Dr. Campbell?
Excuse me. This is Charles Campbell, in case you didn't recognize the voice.
I did. I thought. I just had to make sure, though. Welcome, Charles. Good to hear from you. Actually, folks, Charles and I talked a little bit before the show today, so he was all primed up and ready to call, I hope. Glad you're feeling better, sir.
Primed and ready. You know, I can't wait for your new show, because I did a computer show and a computer column for almost 30 years. And you're not as cute as Kim Commando, but I think the information will be just as important.
Well, now, cuteness is a matter of the beholder's eye, don't you think?
Slapwig on you. Smile.
That's right. And for folks, if you do call in, I think when I checked earlier today, there was about a 10-second delay between the live show on my end and what showed up at the website. So keep that in mind, and you'll want to pay attention to the call audio, not to the video audio. But Charles, if you've got a tip for somebody that's starting a video production company of some kind, folks, Charles is a marketing master. He has written more articles on marketing, more articles on computer. I mean, you name a subject, he's written. Charles, would it be correct to say maybe you've written thousands of articles?
10,000. I think I counted one time.
Okay.
But I've been being a writer since I was 17, and of course working with a newspaper and a journalist professor. This is something I can do two things well: fly big airplanes, drop bombs, kill people, and write. So,
well, let's talk about writing. What tip would you give somebody that was starting out and wanted to get their business going, doing video production of some kind? What tip would you give them? Would you have an idea for them?
Oh, I do indeed. There are many courses available online, and there are a couple of things. If I suggest they contact me, that way by email, and I can send them information that will be a little more lasting than trying to copy down what I'm saying. Now,
what's that email, Charles?
Doctor, I'll put it up, and that way they can write to me. And I'm happy to do this as a courtesy to your audience, because I've been listening to this thing as long as, well, when you started. And the audience here is about as sharp a bunch of people as I've ever seen.
Well, we've got a really loyal live audience that tunes in every Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock London time. And then we have a very huge video-on-demand audience that will come and watch us tonight and tomorrow and next week and next month and a year from now. So that's a lot of fun. Let's see. Charles, are you going to post this email address in the chat here, and I can transfer it here onto the screen, or would you rather just have folks in the chat get this?
No, I'm putting it in here. I'm doing it one letter at a time. I'm a two-handed typer. I don't know how to do one finger typing.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know where the keys are. My fingers do, but
Charles is in the process, folks, of developing a video internet studio in West Columbia, South Carolina.
That's right. I have a a 1,200-foot studio that is about 6 weeks behind because I was laid up with bronchial infection for 6 weeks, and of course I'm just basically a lazy person. But I'm happy to help anybody who wants to do this as a hobby or make money. And people hire me because they want to know how to make money at this stuff, and that's something I do. But I'm happy to help anybody because this is a new field, and it's I've been broadcasting since I was 16 years old, and I've seen the changes come along. Internet and streaming is just blowing everything away.
Excuse me. Yeah, it is really amazing. Let me pop this up to the top of the screen. There we go. It's Dr. Campbell at strnetwork.com, and he will be happy to shoot you some pointers. Keep in mind he is doing this as a friendly gesture, so don't take advantage of him.
Well, I'm happy I found the VidBlaster because up until that time, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do to stream video.
Charles, that was the exact position I found myself in back in 2008. It was like, how? I know there's got to be a way to do this. I mean, it's too logical to be able to put video out there for everybody to see. And it was just a matter of finally, after probably literally months of looking, I mean, just at nights and weekends, but months of Googling, I hit on the right search terms, and up popped VidBlaster. And the rest is history.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I wanted to stream video from my studio.
Yeah.
They wanted $8,000 a month to do it. Needless to say, I did not do that. Just how you stream.
No, and you can do that. If you hadn't rented a studio, you could do it out of a spare bedroom for the price of an internet connection, the price of a PC, a good camera, and great software. Yep.
Cool. Well, I'm going to get offline and let other people take up.
Great.
And I'll be listening, of course. And anybody wants to send me their email, I'll send them a contact phone number. They feel free to call me because I have more time than I need.
That's Dr. Campbell at strnetwork.com. Very generous offer from Dr. Campbell. Thank you, Charles.
Enjoy your time. See you.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, well, you can tell from the audio quality of the call, it was legible. I mean, it was clear enough to be heard and understood. I remember the very first time we did this on this show, I had not had it configured correctly. And so I could hear the callers, and they could hear me, but I hadn't correctly configured it so that the call volume from them would pass through to you. So that was kind of silly. So if anybody else that's out there now would like to call in with a question or a comment, we'd love to have it. And there's good discussion going on in the chat room right now about how to set up mix minus in stereo. Okay, to use 2 aux channels. And yeah, sure you can do that. Why not? Why not? Of course, you know, excuse me, for what we are doing, stereo is not that critical, because whether you're getting me in stereo or whether you're getting me in whether you're getting me in mono over 2 speakers, it's going to sound the same because I'm sending a mono signal. But if we were doing live music and we had mic'd the auditorium or the venue in a way that we could pick up a center volume, a right volume, and a left volume, then that would be important. We've got another caller calling in. Let's see what we can find out.
To accept, press 1.
I'm going to press 1.
Press 2.
Welcome to that VidBlaster guy. Who's on the line?
This is Charles again. It occurred to me, since I was using my Magic Jack telephone while I was running your show, the quality may have been poorer. This is my office phone. How's this sound? Is it better quality?
I think it sounds about the same.
Okay, just checking.
Okay. Thank you, Charles.
Bye.
Bye. Interesting, because when Charles and I talked earlier, I noticed that his words were clipping a little bit, and I bet when we talked in pre-show, and I bet it was because he was using the Magic Jack. I know sometimes that uses a technology where it tries to screen out the background noise in order to give you a clearer signal, but in doing that, it clips the words just a tad, and so I know that that's sometimes the case. Excuse me. Goodness, just picked up a little bug there somewhere. The whole concept of taking callers on the air, if you're interested in doing it more professionally, I mean, you can tell I'm answering the phone. I don't know who's calling. It's somewhat limited because I haven't given my number out to the whole world. I've given it out to a relatively limited number of folks who happen to be watching live today and tuned into the chat room. And so if you ever want to watch live and call in, by all means do that. It's that vidblasterguy.com. If I were a show that was more professional, I would want to have a call screener. I would want to have somebody that answered the phone and made sure that they weren't crank calls, kind of get an idea what the subject matter would be, and then find a way to communicate that information to me and allow me to select which call I want to take, and to take the call and then to end the call. And there is a service out there that will do that. It's called Blog Talk Radio, and they will do it all online, where you can accept the call, where the call comes into, I guess it comes into their call center. It might be your number, but you would forward your number to their call center. It would come in, your call screener would answer it. They would type into a browser window who the person was, what they wanted. They would hit, enter or input or whatever, and me you as the host would see on your screen that Charles is calling in on line 2 and he wants to talk about audio quality. And then it would be just simply a matter of taking your mouse and clicking on Charles, and that would bring him in on the call. And then you can mute him, you can send him back into the green room, you can end the call. And I think there's a nominal fee for that. So if you're interested in doing it more professionally, obviously it requires an additional person. So if you're one man, one PC, then you're going to have to be 2 men, 2 PCs or 2 people, 2 PCs in order to make something like that work. So different ways of doing the same thing. Let's see if we can coax somebody else out of the chat room. We've got such an international audience today, they probably don't want to make an international call just to get in on the show, but that's okay. That's okay. Possible uses for VidBlaster. When we started this show, we thought, we're going to pitch this show to 3 different kinds of audiences. We're going to pitch it to folks that want to do a talk show out of a spare bedroom. And so there's the talk show subject matter. We're going to pitch it to folks that want to stream sporting events or other community events, concerts or speeches or council meetings, those kinds of things. And that's great. And then the third category we pitched to were folks that wanted to stream worship services. And it really has been fun to talk with folks from all 3 of those different categories about what they wanted to do. Oh, sounds like we have another caller on the line. Let's
Caller.
see who we've got. Welcome to That VidBlaster Guy. Who's calling?
Hey, Tom, it's Merle Cox. How are you?
I'm sorry, I lost your name there for just a second. Who is it?
It's Merle Cox.
Merle Cox. Well, how in the world are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Great. Glad you called in. I was dying there. I needed somebody to call, man. You've saved me.
Yes, sir. Well, I just tuned in and saw you ask, and so are you taking questions?
I am taking questions. I'm taking comments. Basically, the show today was going to be about version 3.20, but I found out this morning in preparing for the show that there was a bug in it that prevented me from using it. So my whole show theme for today got punted at the last minute. So this is called the Wing It Show. And so I will welcome any question you have.
Alrighty, sir. Well, I'm currently a VidBlaster user. I'm still using the free version, testing it out.
Good.
And I'm having some difficulties with cameras. I've got 2 USB Logitech 920 cameras, and I'm using the embedded USB ports on my PC. And it just seems like sometimes I have trouble. The drivers seem like they reset the camera settings, and they do show up in VidBlaster, but it just seems like the settings themselves constantly reset. And I'm wondering, one, will I have better luck if I install another PCI USB card and put one of my cameras on that? Or I mean, is that logical thinking? Like I said, I'm new to this.
Merle, that's a great question. And a lot of folks, I get that same kind of question a lot. And let's talk a little bit about PC architecture. Now, I am not an expert in PC architecture, but I know a little bit. So there may be, if I get far down the wrong track, someone in the chat room, I hope will correct me. But the way your PC is configured, how many different USB ports do you have?
I currently have 4 in the back, 2 in the front. And based on what I know, it looks like there's 2 separate USB buses. So what I've done is I've plugged one in the front and one in the back, but it still seems like sometimes I have some difficulty with that.
Okay. Yeah, even though they're split between front and back, you probably just have 2 hubs in your PC, 2 buses. And it may be that the one that you're using in the back is also shared with the front. So you can go into the control panel, into Device Manager, and check and see where your USB ports are. I mean, to see where your cameras are plugged in, if they're plugged into the same controller or not. Or you can just swap around and see if you get better action. I know that the streaming PC that I'm using has got 3 USB hubs, three controllers, and I have to be careful about where I plug in. So that's kind of homework to do. We won't do that here on the air. But the other thing is Logitech, and I had a chat with an engineer from Logitech probably in the fall. Logitech, number one, never really anticipated people were going to use these cameras for streaming. And they also never really anticipated that you would use more than one. And so their drivers do not do a good job of handling more than one camera of the same kind. I had two Logitech 930s sent to me for testing, and the first one did great, and when I installed the second one, the quality went down, they got confused, they didn't know who they were, they started drinking and staying out late at night. It was just a terrible scene. So I sent them back to the fellow that loaned them to me, and he sent me those so that I would test them and tell him how they were working. And so I said, I can't do that. And that's when I talked with the Logitech engineer about that, because it was a new product and they wanted the product to do well. And they said, yeah, we never really anticipated that you'd be using these things for streaming like this, nor did we anticipate you'd be using two or more of them at the same time. So the drivers aren't designed for that. I've got two C920s like you do. Currently, I've got just one of them plugged in, and what I've found on my end is that I can configure one of them, but I can't configure the other one. And whichever one the PC recognizes first is the one that I can configure. Now, I can tell the software, I can change from one camera to the other camera in the Logitech software, and I can change the configuration. But even if I'm telling the software change the configuration in camera number 2, it still is assigned to camera number 1, and so it makes the changes to camera number 1. So I have not been able to figure out a way to get that second camera adjusted. Just has not been successful from my standpoint. I'd hoped to be able to do that. In fact, I just pulled that guy out of the box a couple of weeks ago to check it for the first time. So I don't have a good answer for you on that one. I do have a good answer for you. Here's the good answer. Trade that 920 in for a 9000 or a 910 or whatever a previous version was. And so you'll have two different drivers at work, and you can configure them independently.
Gotcha. Well, I've had the same problem. When I have both cameras up, no matter which camera I select, if I'm messing with the white balance or something, it only does it on the one camera. So right. I'm glad it's not me. Sorry, but
nope, it's not you. It's not you. It's universal. So what kind of show have you got?
Right now, I've got an i5 processor, which I want to update that. It's just an HP. I've got an upgraded graphics card, and I have the two cameras. And then, of course, all my audio is what I've really focused on in the past, because I'm a big fan of Mike Phillips, and I know you've talked to him.
Yep.
So I really focus on that. So I've got a nice little, yes, he is fantastic guy. And got a nice little Behringer mixer, and I use a Heil PR40 and a Shure SM7B. But I wish I'd have met Mike Phillips previously, because I would have taken his advice, because my third mic is the 2100, and that mic is fantastic.
The Audio Technica, yeah.
Yes, sir. I can never, I always told Mike, where were you a year ago when I was buying all this equipment?
He was there. He just, yep. But that's how we learn. Merle, it's just, spending money and making mistakes and being wiser. Wisdom just doesn't come for free. We either spend time or money or whatever, but there's a cost to getting wisdom. And people like Mike that are willing to share it so generously and selflessly are real prizes in this industry. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And you fall in there. I appreciate all that you do. I've been kind of a silent watcher, and I try to get your show whenever I can. I usually don't get home from work till a little later, but I got home early today and turned you on. So wow. I appreciate all the videos you guys do, and I'm sure you will be hearing from me more in the future, Tom.
Glad to do it, and glad to help. What's the one thing you like best about VidBlaster?
Say that again. You kind of broke up, Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry. What do you like best about VidBlaster?
Well, I've tried some of the other products, and I know there's another product. I won't mention it. A lot of people use it, And but VidBlaster for me and my configuration on the PC just works. And every time there's an update, I've noticed it just works better and better. So it's easy and it's clean. And like I said, it works. The other product, I downloaded their free trial, could never get more than one camera. I don't have a lot of time. This is a hobby for me. So when I get down here, I have a 6-year-old. So after she goes to bed, I do the honeydew list. I come to the basement, podcast and start the video and play around, and it just works, Tom. That's why I like it.
Cool. There you have it, folks. It just works right out of the box. Yep. That's exactly what drew me to it, Merle, was I'd say, I wonder if it'll do this. And I'd do it, and it would work. And I'd say, well, if I can do that, I bet I can do this. And it would work. It was almost like the developer had read my mind about how things should work. It's wonderful. Yep, exciting. All right, well, what other questions you got up your sleeve?
That's pretty much it for today, Tom. Like I said, I talked to you, and I heard you looking for a caller, and I thought, well, let me call and ask a question. So I appreciate it, sir.
Well, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you on the Logitechs. But
that's okay. It's nice to know that I'm not the only one out there. I thought it might have been me or some way I had the computer configured. So,
and I think when I first started off, I had Logitech and I also had the Microsoft Studio Live camera, whatever it was, and I never was really happy with that camera, and that's why I bought the second Logitech. And I wish I had gone to a previous version. I think I may sell my second 920 on on eBay, and try to pick up an older one for that same reason.
Right.
So watching.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have two earlier versions. They don't do HD, and I think that's why I got rid of. They're still sitting here on the desk. It's an earlier Logitech. I forget the model number.
Right.
But it's a nice camera, but it doesn't have the quality that the video quality these do. So.
Well, and depending on what you're going to do with your show, you may not need HD. When I'm showing, and not today because I don't have all my cameras hooked up, but when I'm showing a close-up of a product here on my desktop, it's a standard definition camera. A low quality, like 320 by 240, old 20-year-old camera that's producing that image. And for that particular static shot, it does great. So you'd be amazed you can get a lot of life out of some of this old equipment. Yep.
Right, and you're right, because I do not stream right now in HD because my provider, I can only get like 1.5 up. So right now, you're correct. I don't stream in HD, so that's a good point.
Yep. I'm a cheapskate, man. I like to reuse all that old stuff as long as I possibly can. Yep.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Merle, thanks for calling in.
Yes, sir. I'm sure I'll talk to you in the future.
Great. Looking forward to it. All right. What a great call. With a question, no doubt. That was super. We're not really a tech show. Well, I guess we are a tech show. What kind of show are we? Are we a tech show, or are we a hobby show, or are we a small business show? Not really sure. I'm checking the chat room here, and they're still having a great discussion about hooking up cell phones to mixers. So that's good, and would love to have anybody else call in that would like to. Especially if you were out there and won a contest from us or something like that. You can call in and give us a report on what you're doing with the software that you won. You remember last year we gave away, in the month of November, we gave away a version of VidBlaster every week during the month. And then back in March, I think we gave, was it the Pro version? We gave away the Pro version. And we'll probably do something again in March this year. So, and basically what we asked was, if you want to enter the contest, send us a video or send us a link to a YouTube video that you made that shows how you would use VidBlaster and how you would, use some of the more obscure features in VidBlaster. And my whole concept was to think, I want people to explore VidBlaster and push the limits and see if they can use the building blocks together. Oh, here's one more call.
Call from unknown caller.
If I had a call screener, I wouldn't be interrupted like that.
2.
But let's press 1 and welcome to that VidBlaster guy. Who's calling?
Hey, Tom, this is Bob. Hey, Bob.
Bob, you got the hint.
What I heard, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, but you sound like you're a little bit overmodulated. And I had to turn off my sound, of course, so that I could be on the call. This is wonderful. I should say, I was one of the people who won the VidBlaster contest you had back in November. That was very exciting, a lot of fun to do. I don't really have any question. We're working forward slowly to get a program out. I've been doing a couple of little private programs, but nothing for the public yet, but that's coming. One question I had, though, is I've been kind of following this cell phone cable thing. The yellow tip, where is the yellow and the red? I'm confused about that. That's why you need your camera there so we can see it.
Yep. The yellow carries the audio from the phone to the mixer. And so you want to plug the yellow into an input on the mixer. And on my mixer, I've got the 1/4-inch jacks, and then I've got XLR jacks. And so I'm using a 1/4-inch jack that has a adapter in it that adapts 1/4-inch to RCA. And since the 1/4-inch is mono, and the yellow here is mono, the adapter I've got is a 1/4-inch. Let's see, I can pull it out of my Skype one and show you. Let's see. Hopefully I didn't just lose all my audio. But it's a little adapter that looks like this. It's 1/4-inch on the male end, and then it's RCA on the female end. And I can plug those in together and then plug this tip ring sleeve. It's not stereo, it's a mono. Let's see if you can see just the one little sleeve, the one little ring on it. And that plugs into my mixer, and that gets the audio into the mixer from the phone. And then to send the audio back to the phone, I'm using the same kind of adapter plugged into the auxiliary port on the mixer. And I've got my red connector that's carrying the audio from the mixer back to the phone. Now the audio that's being sent over this red connector is the mix minus, and we've talked a lot about mix minus. Basically, it includes the mix, that is all the audio that's available in my mixer. It includes that mix minus the caller. So I've turned up the volume on my auxiliary controls in each of the input channels, except for the one that has the cell phone on it. That one's down at nothing. I would say 0, but I don't think that's what it's called on the mixer. It's called something else. And then I've got a volume control for all of the auxiliaries combined, for all my aux2 auxiliaries, and that's set at about 12 o'clock. The player volume and my overhead mic volume are set at about 3 o'clock. And then, 9 o'clock. And then all the others are set all the way off.
So for that mix minus, I wonder if you could reduce it just a touch, because it seems like it's overmodulating. It's a little bit harder for me to hear. So what you're sending back to me is too loud going through your phone, I think.
Okay. Is that better?
It's sounding better. Could you say a few more words?
Okay, is that better? Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Try just a little bit down, a little more.
Just a little more. Okay, that's good news. Good to know because you can't talk to yourself. I mean, you can, but
Yes, that's better. I can understand you better now.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, the mix minus is that you would do with a Skype call or any other audio that's coming in that's going back to somebody else. You don't want them to have to deal with themselves. But in terms of the cable, I haven't been using the white. I've just been using the red as an audio, and the audio to the phone, and the yellow as the audio from the phone. And it's cheap and it's easy and it's cool. Yep. Good question.
Indeed. Well, thanks a lot, Tom. This is great. We'll stay in touch. I'll be watching for your new show too. I'm excited about what you're going to come up with next. So that'll be fun.
Good. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for calling in.
Bye for now.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, that was Maine Bob from Maine in the United States, and he was one of our winners in the November contest. Well, thank you guys for calling in, for Bob and Charles and Merle. It was a treat. Appreciate that. And all the folks that showed up in the chat room today to chat about. They've had a great conversation about this. And we are about out of time. Next week we'll be on again Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. And we'll be posting this one to YouTube later. If you are watching live for the first time, you can go to our YouTube channel, That VidBlaster Guy, and see all the back videos that we've done, going back about 1.5 years. And some of them are kind of by subject, and some of them are by version, and some of them are just discussions. So that it's kind of a weaving. It's a big fabric out there of different videos. Looking forward to, in the future, we're putting together VidBlaster 101, which is going to be a subscription service of tutorials, very specific tutorials, about 15 minutes in length. And we'll have more information on that when we get some of those up, and there's some value there to the subscription. We'll also be starting a new show shortly that will be all about streaming and recording and cameras and capture cards and all that other kind of stuff. And then we'll also be continuing with that VidBlaster Guy, specifically on the subject of my favorite live production software, VidBlaster. I'm Tom Sinclair. On behalf of myself. On behalf of myself, I wish you a great day and a happy new year. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Take care. Let's see now, how can I gracefully get out of here? I want to gracefully go out to player 3, and we'll just transition. How about that? That'll work.